Hey, how's it going? This is Raymond from the Australian Vanguard. I'm just walking down to my local shopping centre and I'm going to go in and grab myself a coffee. With this. Let's see if I get some good reactions. Take it easy. G'day. Reactions have been freaking awesome. I've got old women smiling at me. I've got people running up to high-five me. I've got old men and women driving past like grandmas, beeping and like sticking their hands out the window, giving me thumbs up. Like every second person's giving me a thumbs up and smiling. People are saying, good job, mate, good job. I'm saying, love yourself, and they're like, that's right. It works. It works. No White Guilt was right. It's about time people start listening.
One final testimony here. This is from Nathaniel. I just found this, and it speaks to me on a lot of levels. Too many forget that the continuance of a people should come from the love of one's own people, and not a hate for the other. I hate the mistakes I made. I wear them every day, and some I even wish I could take back. But time is merciless and flows only forward. I'm trying to rectify them, but some I may just have to live with. It's an uphill battle. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, Listen to this guy, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, No White Guilt,
Everything from being a man, to encouraging your kin to face tattoos, to how you identify yourself and your beliefs, to discerning your motivations for why you want to see the children of the West survive. Don't make my mistakes. You'll feel like a fool otherwise. Don't make my mistakes. That's from Nathaniel Nelson. A warning to him about the warnings that he wished he had somebody share with him.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, Listen to this guy, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, Listen to this guy, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, Listen to this guy, No White Guilt, No White Guilt, No White Guilt.
They are not opposing white supremacy. They are not opposing white nationalism. They are not opposing white separatism. They are opposing white identity. They are opposing white people.
And we are rolling in today. Please let me know that you can hear me all right on this Going Free this evening, because we have some interesting news when it comes to one Elon Musk and one roasted chicken, formerly known as Twitter. Who knows what's going to become of the platform? We're going to talk a little bit about that. I want to hear your views as well, if not live in the live chat in the thread later. We're not going to be on Odyssey today, not because we don't want to be, but because it's just not working for whatever reason. Great to see everybody here. Anglo-Saxon, Promethean hails to you as well. Berg Bear, thank you and welcome. Victorian Time Traveler. Alex, Space Hopper, thank you for the feedback. And there is another little ladybug. Hello, young lady, giving us some feedback. Thank you. No White Guilt Clips. Thank you. Please do, folks, share the URL while we are here, because we're not going to be here terribly long. Popcorn Power. There's the great Franklin, an Anglo-Saxon, not my potato. Fintan, is that right? Great to see you. And Todd and Kingdom of Vinland. Promethean hails to you as well. Twitter says that it is being acquired by Elon Musk for $44 billion. So a little pocket change. I think he provided 20-some billion of his own cash. Western Essence is with us. Great to see you. Bomb M is here as well. Carrie as well. I have some notes, and I guess we'll just take a look at that first, and then look at a couple of these stories, because this deal is, Twitter is saying it's real and that it's a done deal. Now, when Musk takes over, that's yet for us to discover. That's yet for us to find out. It's kind of like buying your house on a much bigger scale. The day you buy it is not necessarily, or the day the deal is secured is not necessarily the day you move in. So Twitter has been sold to Elon Musk, and he will be taking it private after Twitter agreed to the deal worth $44 billion. Twitter announced this, that they had accepted the bid. And originally, this all began, I guess, earlier this month with Musk taking and I argued that this actually began much earlier, when the anti-whites stupidly forced people like Musk to feel concerned about whether or not they would be censored from the platform like everyone else that the anti-whites don't like. And a much brighter United States with therefore much brighter anti-whites would have immediately reached out to Musk as soon as he was, as soon as they were aware that he was on the platform, and then assured him that he would be able to say anything he wanted at any time on their platform. He would never be censored. And I think if they had done this, this would not be happening today. I think that what really motivated him, he said his own words were, "Twitter is how I express myself." He speaks to nearly 100 million people without an anti-white interpreter for the rest of us to tell us what he really thinks and how evil he actually really is. At least he's evil until he is villainy signaling enough anti-whitism. And so this is his way that he expresses himself. And that's, again, in his own words. And someone of his intelligence, someone of his wealth, someone of that power, and I don't know, we could go on further about awareness of the systems and systems in general, is just not going to suffer that forever, that haunting that we all have to live with if you're not anti-white enough. That haunting that's with us every day about, are we going to not only be censored, have our tongues cut out of our mouth, are we going to be thrown out of the family, excoriated and dismissed from university, fired from our jobs? We live under anti-white tyranny, and you're just not going to be successful as an anti-white if you're making powerful geniuses feel that way as well. And so they didn't do what they should have done, and as a consequence, for their own good, which is good for us. Now, it doesn't matter. I'll also say it doesn't matter for us that Elon Musk has shown no sign whatsoever of being white sympathetic, certainly not white positive. In fact, he's of the same pathetic Republican conservative, not the people, but their leaders, their content creators, their elected officials, that if you just claim that you are going to be for freedom of speech for everyone, then you have the moral high ground. I'm afraid that's not the case. That is simply not the case anymore, and has not been the case for all of our lives at no point. So if he wants to proceed, and I can give some tips about how he's either going to crash and burn at the stake by anti-white hands or survive a contest with the anti-whites. He is not going to be able, as Republicans and conservatives, patriots and nationalists have never been able to, claim some sort of vacuous morality of loyalty to some objective standard or virtue or some law that white people enshrined, and then somehow by way of those claims become unassailable, inviolable to the anti-whites. It simply does not work that way. And all of the evidence demonstrates that, but so does reason and logic. Now, he moved in and took 9.2% of Twitter's stock earlier in the month. And then I think it was that Twitter said he would be joining the board, and then that would limit ownership to 15% of the stock. Twitter's board, not widely reported, of course, owning virtually no stock in the company. They still had a fiduciary duty to do what is best for the shareholders, because that's otherwise wildly illegal. And it seemed like that what they were doing was wildly illegal. But he rejected that because he didn't want to be restricted to just 15%, I assume, and maybe he had greater ambitions. I think when we, do a sort of a bioassay, maybe a month from now or 2 or maybe even 6, and look back, it might be clearer about what was happening here. I'm not going to be in the camp that each of his steps up to this point have been calculated. I think dumb people will easily fall into that category, and they may be right, but I do not believe that's the case. We'll find out. He refused to be part of the board, and then announced that he wanted to buy Twitter and the board for a price greater than the value of the shares. The board of Twitter rejected this, and I believe that was ultimately illegal, considering the size of the offer, because it's their duty, even though they have no stock in the company. I think the entire board only has 77 shares or something like this, so that's nothing. And when these are people who have 6-figure salaries at a part-time job and millions elsewhere, it's ridiculous. And so he made the offer, they rejected. So then he decided he was going to move forward with a hostile takeover, specifically a tender offer, which was he was not going to be able to speak to the shareholders through the board, but he could go public, and a tender offer would be he would set a price. There would be a range of days. So there'd be a date when this could take place. There would be a minimum number of people that would have to come and sell their shares to him before he would move forward with the purchase, or just generally a tender offer. That's generally how it works. And Twitter, then the board, the anti-whites, dragged their feet. And why is this? Once again, proving, and I hope we never have to have this discussion again, that anti-whites put anti-whitism ahead of money every single time. Every single time they put anti-whitism and victimizing Western kind, destroying Western civilization ahead of profit. Because why? The human animal has always put faith ahead of profit. Look at the history of the human animal. And it's been nothing but what we would call religions and quasi-religions, and anti-whitism is nothing different. So you might say, well, what about this person? They decided to take money. Well, then they obviously weren't in a church or any other religion. Is everybody of the same level of faith and self-sacrifice? Of course not. But generally speaking, they will take faith over financial reward, because there is a bigger emotional reward in it for them by way of the religion or quasi-religion, however you want to look at it. So they dragged their feet again, which again I believe was illegal, and maybe for a time they could drag their feet, and it would be defensible perhaps. But they were claiming, well, we're going to wait for another buyer. This guy's going to buy it for this sum, maybe someone else. Of course, it's a preposterous claim because the amount of money that he was moving forward with was far in excess of the value of this company, at least in its present state. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But far in excess, no one was going to come along. So then, of course, he moved forward. We talked about this briefly. You probably saw in the news. He said, all right, some of my friends are going to move forward potentially with a tender offer, and maybe he would come forward with a traditional offer. He got a number of banks to use Twitter itself to raise money for the purchase. He said, I'll write a check for the 20-some billion other dollars. And now essentially you had, and I'm not in the weeds on this and all the specific details, but essentially what you had there was, what was developing was two offers, all of which essentially are Musk. And that, of course, made it immensely challenging, because it's for the board, it is opening them to endless lawsuits from Twitter shareholders, who, of course, are injured the longer the board holds out. Perhaps the deal falls through, and then they are unable to get their money. I think, though, that, and we can talk about this some more, about this is potentially a tactical retreat for anti-whites, and meaning that we can expect a whole slew of attacks from various angles, from inside of Twitter and elsewhere, moving forward. But so that seemed to be the new strategy. And then now we have Twitter accepting at $54.20 a share from Elon Musk to purchase the company and take it private. And they have announced that they accepted that. And so now it is about filling out the paperwork. So we have some questions that we have to ask ourselves. And the most important for those of us who care about the white race, for those who care about, of any race, who care about Western civilization, and therefore those of us who want to put an end to anti-white ideology, we have to ask, how do we act in this new environment? What can we expect? What opportunities will we have? What new challenges will we have as a consequence? Is this going to develop exactly as it might seem on the surface? What can we expect from Musk? Is he going to take steps that are going to make a fairer playing field of which we can potentially take advantage? Will anti-whites stay on Twitter? I know some are saying that they all will stay on Twitter. I don't believe that, because they cannot withstand the scrutiny of reason and logic and evidence. And so they will endlessly lose in an environment where there can't be strict censorship and control of the narrative, so that it's always the anti-white narrative. Think of how useful Twitter has been. There have been thousands easy scenarios where Twitter has been wildly powerful for the anti-whites, despite the fact that, relatively speaking, it is has a very small user base compared to TikTok or Facebook. I guess Facebook's probably in the billions, and at this point, and TikTok, I don't know, a billion maybe, and or hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions. And what is Twitter even? Scores of millions? I don't even know. It's not nearly as large, but it's very influential. The question that is begged at that point is, what is the influence there? How does it influence? Is it influential because it is? Or is it influential because it's a tool in a greater anti-white machine? And that perhaps the tactical retreat here by anti-whites is to bilk Musk of many billions of dollars and therefore power for a tool that is now going to be as useful as a sprocket on a bicycle that no longer has a bicycle. So that's something that we have to consider. Now that the anti-whites, I wouldn't think it's not prudent for us to think that the anti-whites have raised a white flag and are fleeing from the field, especially because a defeat of, or an apparent defeat of anti-whites. And remember, all conflict, whether it's warfare conflict or political conflict, socio-political conflict like this, is always masked by the fog of conflict, masked by the fog of war. And what really is taking place, we can act on the few broader strokes, and we should act as quickly as possible based on what we can determine. But this is not a moment where we just are celebrating and then sit down and wait to see what happens next. That's not how we serve white well-being. We dig in, we find out how we can act and make use of this new scenario as it develops, because that is how we're going to recapture our destiny, not by celebrating what appears to be a defeat for anti-whites and then waiting for the victor in the contest to do something next, right? And then deciding that that's your new quarterback for your team, and you're going to start celebrating that individual because the anti-whites hate him now. That's extremely foolish. So I guess we're talking about Twitter probably having about 300 million users. And what's going to happen? I think a lot of people are asking, is Trump going to be immediately put back on? I guess Alex Jones was also kicked off. A lot of folks have been kicked off Twitter. You were probably kicked off Twitter many times. And are these people going to be immediately allowed back on? I think there's only one way that will happen. The only way that will happen, and I think probably the only legal, maybe even fair way for Musk to handle this, is to say, we're starting from scratch. Everybody can get back on Twitter. That's what I think is the only fair way. If he were to pick and choose, like Trump's powerful, so he could be back on if he wants, and he doesn't want. We'll talk about that too. Jones could be back on if he wants because he's got money, he's powerful. But Mary in Kansas, nah. And you, John in Nebraska, nah. You're not getting back on. You were bad at some point. So I think the only way that he can really go about this is just to say, clean sheet. Everybody can get back on Twitter, and then we'll have a new terms of service, and then we will address people with this new terms of service, which is going to be interesting because Musk has said, and I'll look at these articles. I haven't read them yet, but and so maybe they support what I know from other articles or speeches that he's given, or it'll be a change. But he said that he wants to go after the bots, also like an edit feature of some sort. And everybody was panicking about how can an edit feature work on Twitter? Because if you are able to edit it and all these people have already retweeted you, they might not want to retweet what your change is. I don't think it would work that way. I mean, unless they can find a way to make the actual tech work that way. I think the way it would work is they would give you an opportunity to alter your tweet, maybe within minutes or something like this, after so many minutes, so that you get an opportunity, because just about everybody has tweeted something, you're in the moment, you hit tweet, and then you look at it and you see, oh, I forgot a letter, or I clicked the letter right beside the letter I wanted. And now your option is delete the thing and start all over, or click and edit. And so I think it would probably be something like that. That's a hunch. I could be wrong. But it does seem to be difficult to make an edit button work when you might be changing what 5,000 500,000 people have retweeted. And then they would have to look at it and decide, okay, do I want to stay with this or not? Or maybe it could be something like minor spelling adjustments or something like that would be something that could be edited. He also wants to address the bot issue. The bots on Twitter have driven ideas, they've driven campaigns, they've driven news, they show up and they drive, and suddenly you have things that are trending on Twitter. And then really, as again, where the power of Twitter comes is because the thing that trends on Twitter is suddenly picked up in this newspaper and that website and over there at that business and the other social media networks. They pick it up and they say it's an important thing because it's trending on Twitter. Will all of these anti-white entities continue to say that now that Twitter will be in Musk's hands? Somebody who says, well, it's just all about free speech. I think it's unlikely. So will Twitter be as valuable for trend setting and determining what news is worthy of knowing or hearing or reading under the anti-white narrative? So you can think about a lot of things. You can think about Trump and working with Russia, or whether or not that was real. Twitter didn't allow one side of opinion. They allowed information from another side. And did it turn out being the opposite? You can't say on YouTube if it contradicts an anti-white position, because they have full control here and they're shadow banning the shit out of me. We'll get to that with Twitter in a moment. What about the Biden's son and those dealings, and whether or not there was problems with Ukraine? Of course there weren't. Just check with CNN and the anti-whites that are there. But of course there weren't any issues. Well, again, on Twitter. And so you're looking at these big issues, and it goes all the way down to much smaller issues, even like local races, political races. So a very powerful machine that punches well above its weight class. But is it because of the thing in and of itself, the tweet in and of itself, the chicken in and of itself? So something to wonder. Trump has said, I understand, that he is not going to return to Twitter. And of course, he has Truth Social, and that's his platform, which, interestingly enough, he hasn't gotten on yet. So was this guy, Donald Trump, ever really concerned about your free speech? He didn't take the kind of steps. I mean, he was put into office for two things, as I recall. Perhaps I'm wrong. You can share your point of view. And that was immigration, because the country is rapidly becoming something other than a Western country, since the people who have the biospirit of the West, our number are diminishing, and we can't even express ourselves in this country across the West anymore, because it is now considered immoral to do so. And you get ostracized from family and all of these sorts of things. This is why you have to go free, because then you can take the moral high ground, which you cannot do if you're just moving forward with conservative or Republican talking points. It was that, and it was putting into the censorship on the internet, because everybody is still, they still have the memories of what YouTube was like, of what Twitter was like, of different social media platforms were like Facebook in the beginning, and how you could hold an opinion at variance with anti-whitism at that time. And slowly but surely, the anti-whites have been tying up these loose ends across social media so that they can control what people are allowed to think, so that they can control what they are allowed to say, which is why the concepts you use are so important. And look at the battle right now, just as an aside, in Florida, where they have this bill about the not teaching children of a certain age, sexuality, a certain age and younger, sexuality at all. And the anti-whites have just decided, okay, it'll be called the Don't Say Gay bill. And then all of these fucking idiots out there are calling it the Don't Say Gay bill throughout the white sympathetic sphere. I mean, it is a perfect example of anti-whites with high IQs, knowing that the concepts that we use are the only things we think with. And that is extremely powerful. This is the psychological warfare. It's the 200 IQ level psychological warfare of this age. And it's been in place for a long time. And it's too bad that it had to wait for all of us good people who are going free to come forward and argue relentlessly with people about whether or not concepts are important. So the anti-whites deny the legislators in Florida the title that they give to the bill. I don't even know what it is. They deny them that name because they know that's not going to be useful to them and not useful to the anti-white narrative. That is something that people wanted Trump to address in office. Do something about the censorship. This is the internet is the public square. And this is something that Musk has said about Twitter. It is the public square. We have entered an age where the digital world is more relevant as a public square than the actual town square, where nobody says anything to anybody and they're just scurrying along to get. If you're a regular person, you're just trying to get by. And if you're one of the filthy rich, you're just trying to get to the next store to buy some more junk so that you can go home and scream at your significant other and then poop in the bed and whatever else you do at the end of the day. And what did Trump do? Nothing. He did nothing. He only decided to care when Twitter kicked him off. Then it became relevant. Now, again, it's like with Musk. If some billionaire, some powerful person's interests end up aligning with ours, great. They don't have to like white people. They don't have to want to put an end to Western or to anti-whitism and thereby preserve Western civilization. If their interest aligns with ours, fantastic. We can benefit from it. But he didn't care about your ability to share your mind without getting censored. And as a consequence, what happened to him? His ass got thrown out of the White House. Now, if we had been able to talk, if he spent those 4 years securing our ability to share our opinions, well, he would have still been in office. But since he didn't do that, he thought he didn't need you to be able to share your opinion. He ended up finding himself in the Floridian, Oval Office or whatever they want to call that thing down there. So he's got this thing, Truth Social now. And he says as far as I know, we'll take a look at the articles quickly. And he's not going to be returning to Twitter. Musk says, let's see, he's also going to go after the scammers. Now, to go after the bots, by the way, this is going to require, I believe, an authentication process that is going to prevent you from being anonymous on Twitter. So that's probably what's coming. It's probably going to be, we have to know that you're a real person and we want to see all that data and we're going to look. And if you don't tell us, then you're not on Twitter. So that might end up undermining the ability of folks to be anonymous on Twitter. But of course, it'll continue to be a cat and mouse game. But to get rid of the bots, that's at least I think will be part of it. Also, the scammers. He says he wants to go after the scammers. So that will be good because Twitter is increasingly filled with the scammers that are out there. Twitter also succeeds, is a note I made to myself here, by way of the biggest name people being on the platform. And therefore, your ability, Nancy in Georgia, to be almost in the same room as some of these big people whose names you know, very popular. Well, who are the biggest names in Western civilization? I don't mean name them, although you could. But who are some of the biggest names? The biggest groups of people, the most well-known? They're anti-whites. Actors, musicians. Think about how many musicians do you know? How many actors do you know that people are just so sycophantic about? And they follow and they worship them. They're down at the courthouse, Fairfax courthouse, which is right down the road. And I don't know, I might go tomorrow if it doesn't rain and live stream from there with all the crazies out there, worried about the crazies inside. But it's all of these anti-whites from, actors who are TV actors, movie actors, musicians. The number of actors and musicians, for example, these glitterati, if you will, that have the most brain dead, sycophantic followers that just want to know everything they do in their lives, even though these people you could be run over and they would just be like, who cares? Those folks are anti-white. Where do you think they might go? Do you think they'll want to stay around Twitter, stay on a platform where they will be able to be relentlessly attacked by people quoting science, quoting data, quoting studies endlessly? Do you think they're going to be comfortable in a place like that? Do you think somebody who lies and believes things that are obviously patently false are going to be able to withstand endless attacks? Not one, not 10. It's not going to be just Jason. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of tweets from people spelling out something that is much more obvious, reasonable, logical. Probably not. Not saying they'll all go by any means, but their participation, even if they stay on the platform, I think will diminish. They could say something negative about Donald Trump. So many people like Donald Trump because even though he didn't do much for them, they're conservatives, they're patriots, they're nationalists, say something negative about Trump, and then the attack is on. That's what they have to look at their phone and see, or look at their desktop and see, their iPad and see them being made a fool of. Probably not going to want to do a lot of that. So if they don't leave the platform, they probably will not participate. And if they're not participating, then it's kind of like they're not there. So what is Musk going to do about this key factor in keeping people on the platform? And that is the big names. You can't say, well, we have, and then you can name like a handful of actors, a handful of musicians that people know and follow and celebrate. Ted Nugent will be there. So what? So what? That's not nearly the draw. I mean, look at these big Hollywood events. You have so many people who are just brain dead that are looking to follow these folks, that are looking to just follow everything these people do. So what is he going to do? Is he going to somehow court them? And does that mean protections to keep them on? He did tweet that he hopes his biggest detractors will stay on there. Well, is hope to a man who makes electric cars work and puts rockets in space, is hope something to him that's similar to you? Hope to most people is when you have surrendered something to the universe. I'm not thinking that Elon Musk surrenders much to the universe. I think he's more like wants to yank the universe down and tie it to the bed and maybe give it a few good ass whoops, at least until it's totally turned on, right? So this is a big question. And anybody who says, well, I know exactly what Musk is going to do, they're just blowing smoke. Who knows? We can make, I guess, educated guesses. But now I know that I wanted to ask also, is Jack Dorsey going to make a return? Because Dorsey has been criticizing the Twitter board for a long time, saying that they are behind the censorship, they are behind the shadow banning. They're the reason why Twitter can't be a real profitable powerhouse. So is he going to end up making a comeback? It might be an easy pick for Musk to bring back this big name when Twitter was better, sort of a thing, and bring Dorsey. Who knows? We'll see. He'll obviously be firing this board, the entire board, because he'll be reducing, he said, their pay to zero. And these people who have been happily earning six figures, they are going and now down to zero for their part-time job there. They're going to be taken off. My note that I have to myself here is, does this mean that Musk and team have identified now this purchase? Or should I just go straight to the, first I'll mention the shadow banning. There is obviously, although you want to find out from CNN, but if you're going to ask the folks at CNN Plus, you're going to have to do it quick because they're grabbing their golden parachutes. Ask them whether or not there is an algorithm on Twitter that shadow bans. I think every sane person who isn't an anti-white, who enjoys the outcomes of shadow banning, will tell you there absolutely is shadow banning. I feel that my account on Twitter is shadow banned. Jared George's account on Twitter is shadow banned. Many people, you probably feel that your account is shadow banned. Will Musk reveal this to the world? That would really be something. If Musk went to the, and I'm not, no sugarcoating it. Don't come out and say, well, what they really wanted to achieve something good. It's not impossible that he would come forward and say that they really were trying to do something good and it ended up in a bad outcome, because this is the inability of a normal person, an average person, to really understand and comprehend the black heart of an anti-white. So they could easily go into Twitter and say, you know, they were trying to do something good and it ended up working out really negatively. I hope he doesn't do that. I hope he doesn't shadow or sugarcoat it. I hope he just comes clean and says this is, and he wants to make the algorithm open source so that everybody can take a look and make sure that there isn't such things as shadow banning. Although you have the issue of advertisers who are already talking about abandoning Twitter. They've already started making noise, saying that they don't want their products to be seen alongside, their adverts for their products to be, or services to be seen alongside tweets that are not anti-white enough. So they're gonna be asking Musk, how are you going to handle this? Because if you can't, then we're going to leave the platform, and valuation, of course, will decrease as a consequence for the platform. The ability of the platform to monetize, to convert what happens there into earnings for the company. So I hope they come out and they say, here is the shadow banning. And we believe, since Twitter works so closely with these other platforms, that this is the exact same, or we know for sure, this is the exact same shadow banning that they use. So you have the outright censorship. Oh, you said something we don't like, and your general posture is something we don't like because you're not anti-white enough. So we're just going to get rid of your account. And the worst, which is the shadow banning, because that is like the anti-white Stasi used to do in East Germany. That is an endeavor to make you go crazy. That is a psychological torture, because the objective is to convince you that no one likes what you have to say. No one likes you. Maybe you're not smart. Maybe you're not attractive. Whatever it is, no one likes you. Look at how much effort you put into your tweeting, your content on YouTube, whatever it might be. Look at how much effort you put in, and yet no one cares about you. So that's a real psychological torture. That's the kind of thing that I think people would be tried and executed for on a countrywide scale. That if you were inflicting that sort of malice aforethought, psychological trauma on a segment of the population, that the government, a just government, would try such people, and if you can be sentenced to prison for doing far less than that to one person, what should happen to somebody who does that to millions? So I really hope it's not a situation where he comes out and says, please don't come after me, anti-whites. I will be kind to you here, and I won't reveal just how evil you really are to the population. And so since I've done something for you, quid pro quo, leave me alone. That's not how anti-whites work. all guns, metaphorical and perhaps otherwise, from anti-whites are going to blaze on everything that Musk does and touches. They're coming for him, whether he's ready to fight back or not. That's a fact. So are there ideas here that Musk has, Musk and team and whoever he's bringing into the equation, about how to make Twitter profitable? Is he going to create some sort of TikTok-esque element to Twitter? I don't know if that's even possible or if it would be user-friendly. Maybe it is, because TikTok seems to be much more popular, much larger, and much more interaction. And he's not going to, he puts rockets into space and has them land back on the launch pad. I don't think he's going to be satisfied with the status quo of the way Twitter operates now. He's going to want it to be very easy to use. He's going to want to be able to make this claim that it honors free speech and that everyone should be allowed on it, that it's the public square. But let's watch out for the caveats and the qualifications. Are there going to be you're going to have the universe of Twitter, and then you'll have sub-universes? Will that be some sort of, the sky's the limit, or maybe the cosmos is the limit when it comes to how he ends up making it work. So if you end up pacifying anti-whites, especially very delicate anti-whites, musicians and actors and actresses, and say, no, you don't have to go. You won't be assailed by a bunch of folks who disagree with you, because you can get into this sub-universe or this subverse, whatever they would call it, and in some way be insulated from that sort of thing. It's not impossible. As I say, I guess the cosmos is the limit. Big question here for those of us who are white sympathetic is, what does this mean for Gab? Not only Gab, but Truth Social, Trump's platform that he hasn't even gotten on yet. What's it mean for these? And Getter and these others, what's it mean for them? I hope not for Gab. I think definitely for Truth Social, it means, it almost certainly means death for the platform. It's not working. It's only on Apple. And I see hard times for them. And these others, equally hard times. Because if you have Musk and he's saying, okay, that the platform that everybody's trying to imitate, this Twitter, this is now going to be available to you, then what would you need some cut rate other service for? What would you need some backwater small service, doesn't work the same, not going to speak to as many people, your celebrities aren't there? What does that do for a person? So I think that Torba is going to specifically have to have a sit down, depending upon how Twitter rolls out, and fundamentally make some changes. He's not going to be able, in my opinion, to rely on, we're going to continue to be this free speech bastion, and who knows what happens there. That could change, but we'll still be here. Okay. I don't know that that's really going to keep people on the platform or win more people to the platform. And maybe the direction to go now for Torba and Gab is something like, this is a white well-being platform. You're anti-white, you're gone instantly, and there would have to be other changes made, but it would have to be an environment that would differ itself, because it can't continue to be a tiny free speech platform next to a gigantic free speech platform. I mean, it's like, what is it? If Elon Musk terms, it's like you have a dwarf star beside a red giant. I mean, it's just not going to do it. I don't see great success. Not saying they can't continue in that guise, but I want Gab to survive. I want Gab to grow. I don't know Torba. He's not paying me to say that, but you want alternatives. That's how you have freedom, is because there are alternatives. The more it gets consolidated, the less freedom you have. So that's something else to think about. And also, what will the anti-whites do now? How will these attacks against Musk materialize? Well, we already saw and read that there are, I think it's, was it Department of Justice and the SEC launched fresh investigations into Tesla. And I can see a lot more. I can see internal sabotage at Twitter as maybe forever, maybe as long as, until they lock it down so severely. Who knows? Obviously all of the anti-white media is going to spin wild yarns about discrimination and anything you can imagine that would undermine the faith in Twitter and a belief not only that free speech is not necessarily what they claim it to be there, but even that other sort of illegalities are taking place. Maybe stealing your info, all of your driver's license, pictures you have to send to them, or whatever it is, however they end up verifying that you are indeed a human being and not a bot. That's all been stolen. And you can count on endless attacks on Twitter as well. Cyber attacks, that is. Cyber attacks at every juncture point in an attempt to undermine the operation, and also wild political pressure against Twitter. I foresee moving forward. It will become, this is why I'm saying, Musk doesn't have the luxury of deciding to just lose like Republicans do and conservatives do all the time. And then they walk away and they say, well, I lost, but I've got a great excuse because I stood up for something worthwhile. And, horseshit. No, they're going to be there to destroy Musk's life. That's how anti-whites are. If they'll drive 1,000 miles to go shout at and scream at some white sympathetic person speaking at a college, what are they going to do about a guy who is absolutely undermining their ability to destroy Western civilization and to inflict injury on Western kind? Sky's the limit. So he's going to have to, and by that I mean, he should hire teams to identify likely candidates that are, when I say it's the candidates of attack on Musk and his holdings and his supporters and his friends and family. He should hire teams to ascertain who they are and then begin suing them, undermining them right now, because they're not going to wait. I mean, you could just look at operations like Jimmy John's, for example, the sandwich maker. And this guy just publicly said, the guy who owned it, publicly expressed support for Donald Trump. And then anti-white organizations, by the half dozen or so, began funding all of this kind of crazy stuff to undermine the company. They began changing laws to undermine the company. And sure enough, he had to sell the company. So if Musk is going to survive, he's not going to be able to just sit back and say, I'm doing the moral thing here by allowing everybody to have a voice. And therefore I've achieved this inviolability of support. No, my friend, they're coming. They're coming. All of the other billionaires out there, the anti-whites, they're coming. They're paying teams right now. They've already paid them and have been paying them, and they've been employed, and they're working overtime to find out ways to undermine you, to undermine SpaceX. You want to bet me, folks, that we start seeing failed rocket launches? You want to bet me that you start seeing sabotage there, sabotage at Tesla? You want to bet? If Musk doesn't want this to just happen everywhere at once, which the anti-whites have done. I read back when I used to think, like a lot of the young guys and some of the old guys think that we just got to read everything. And then once you read everything, you can communicate this voluminous knowledge to everybody you speak with. And then that changes, and it doesn't change shit. But what it did was I learned a lot of things that now serve me as I move forward in an endeavor to change the world for white well-being, to recapture our destiny for the good of everyone in Western civilization. And that is, there were industrialists, the wealthiest of their time, the Musks of their time. And they would support, and they would have factories in multiple countries. They would support something that would be pro-American or pro-Canadian or pro-Australian. And suddenly, every one of their holdings, whatever country they were in, suddenly began having problems. Strikes, fires, lawsuits, everything, everywhere. So Musk had better realize that that is what the anti-whites are going to bring to him. They're not going to tolerate him. The only chance he has is to go at them first. They have, when you deal with something, a monster like that, something that doesn't have any character, they only exist in two forms. Remember this, friends. They either cringe at your feet or they claw at your throat. That's the only forms they exist in. So if Musk doesn't want them clawing at his throat, he better damn well sure make sure they're cringing at his feet. Are the anti-whites going to build an alternative to... We're going to get out of here soon. How many folks do we have? Huh. Get that thing rolling. Are the anti-whites going to build an alternative to Twitter? Maybe. I know they already have, what's this, Mastodon or something? But that's not, I don't think. An alternative to Twitter won't necessarily be another Twitter. You know, it's not going to be like Barker or something. You know, it might be something more like TikTok. It might be, who knows? But that's not impossible. It may be that they just move into another, they move more of their power and give more of the credence to another platform. You could see that Instagram suddenly becomes the platform that the big media and the politicians and universities, they then say, this is trending on Instagram, and so therefore it's news. This is trending on Instagram, and so therefore we need to make policy changes. This is trending on Instagram, and so therefore we need to talk about it on every broadcast. That might be what they do instead. So you could see this sort of a sleight of hand. I don't think that Musk is foolish enough to think that the power that Twitter wielded was in Twitter in and of itself. So I'm inclined to think that he's going to bring some pretty big changes to it. Maybe not right away, because change scares people and they'll leave the platform potentially. It might roll it out more slowly. It could, and when I say people, that could also be advertisers. I would be looking for a phrase this is what Musk should use to really taunt the anti-white POSs out there. And that is, you know, in buyouts and these sorts of things, companies merge. They have, what are they, like layoffs, downsizing. I think there's another corporate speak that is just as annoying that I think Musk should use. I think he should say repeatedly that they are going to be right-sizing Twitter. Right size is corporate speak right now. It's a real backhand to all the POS. It would be a real backhand to all the POSs that get laid off at Twitter. And I think there will be a bunch. I don't know exactly. I think that when you start a company like Twitter, you need a lot of people up front. But then with technology, I've looked in the computers here many times. No, there aren't a bunch of people or hamsters running around on the inside. So there should be systems up and running, and Twitter should need very few employees, I imagine. I could be wrong. But I have heard before, I'm not going to say the number because I don't know if it's right, but I think they have hundreds, maybe even hundreds and hundreds of employees. And that seems like a bit much, especially when all they do is ignore me and you and everybody else who has problems on the platform. Let's see. What else did I want to mention? What then are we going to be doing? What are we going to be doing? What should we be doing? Well, with any of that news, for example, if it's revealed that there's an algorithm, here's the algorithm, it was meant to silence any sort of a dissent, Musk won't put it in the effective way. Don't repeat what he says unless he gets it from us. He won't put it in the most effective way. We need to do that for him. So we need to tell our friends, family, and strangers. We need to tweet when it happens. We need to gab when it happens. We need to, if and when it happens. The proper concepts to talk about anti-white narrative, hate hoaxing, and everything else that puts us in our story where we control the outcome of our destiny. That is where we have to step in. We can't rely on him. And I promise you, there are going to be many in the white sympathetic sphere that as soon as they're going to be dumb as mules and, well, let me just say misguided. They're probably brilliant people, but just misguided. And they're going to end up looking at Musk, upsetting anti-whites, immediately claim that he's some sort of ally and begin debating uselessly about whether or not he's our guy. And then when he says that the censorship was whatever he ends up calling it, they'll just end up saying it no matter how it could even be harmful ultimately, but I would estimate or surmise useless rather than discussing it in the most effective way. That's where we come in. We need to make sure that we are always there helping our brothers and sisters with the concepts that empower them as individuals, and therefore they gladly take them up the curative contagion and take them out to their circles of influence. That might mean that there are many content creators and thought leaders, as smart as they are in the white sympathetic sphere and as right as they are in other, correct as they are in other areas, that might mean that they ignore you, that they ignore us, that they stolidly continue to use the most destructive concepts, etc. So be it. Let them do that, because ultimately people are going to go with what serves their self-interest. And you can think about, another age where, the people who, when the car was invented by the white man, of course, ask CNN, I could be wrong there. But when the car was invented, the people who repaired like carriages or whatever, they were very nervous about that, because now their livelihood, what they do, was threatened by. And yet the self-interest of the consumer there drove people, pun intended, to automobiles, away from carriages. And so there are going to be people in the white sympathetic sphere. They're going to be smart. They're going to be wonderful. They're going to be everything about them. They even smell good. And yet it's going to be a threat to what they do. And so, and it might not, it could be monetarily, but it certainly will be their egos. And so When that happens, just move on, because the average person who uses the concepts of going free, this practice, will be empowered by them. And so they'll pick them up ultimately, as we see happening everywhere. What kind of, is it possible? I'll just pose a couple questions here, and I want to hear from you all. I'll take a quick look at these articles, but I want to hear from you all, your thoughts in the live chat, but also in the thread below once we wrap up here, which will be soon. But will Musk ultimately end up implementing his own shadow banning of sorts to placate, to keep the company alive? Is that a possibility as well? Could my idea that I just came up with about Twitter becoming like a multiverse, would that be something that ultimately ends up ghettoizing those who are white sympathetic, and therefore we don't end up speaking to? I mean, are we ultimately left with the Twitter we have today, but with the ability to say anything gross that that a freak might, cult nat might want to say? Might we end up just in that environment with a little blue bird rather than a green frog, as we watch that independent platform slowly desiccating from the lack of participation? So there are a lot of possibilities here, and the table is wide open, and we have to be ready, as is always the case, to meet the challenges that come before us. We have to be activists. We have to be participating. Meet those identify those challenges when they present themselves, overcome those, and with equal alacrity, observe and make use of the opportunities that are made to us by this shakeup. This is what we talk about all the time. And you have these shakeups, societal or context shifting shakeups. This is again one of them. You had pandemic, you have war, you have all these things. We could be making great use of these things. And this is how we're going to move ahead. We don't progress by having some wannabe late night talk show host get in front of you and tell you how good, how bad it is from one day to the next, and then we all go our separate ways. So we have to be change agents. The reason why Musk has done all that he has done is because he is 24/7 at it. We all can't be as smart as that guy. That's fine. We don't need to all be able to start Teslas and SpaceX and Neuralink and the Boring Company. We don't all have to be able to do that sort of thing. We can make big enough changes that when combined with each other end up in a magnificent outcome. It is not going to be violence. It is not going to be voting. This is the psychological defense for the psychological warfare waged against us. It is social, cultural, mental. Let's take a look at some of this news. See what you all are saying. Great to see. There's Gary, based and red-pilled. I wonder if Elon is white sympathetic. I don't think he is. I wish he were white sympathetic, but there have been ample opportunities for him to demonstrate any white sympathy whatsoever. And regrettably, I haven't seen a shred of it as of yet. I mean, that doesn't mean he can't end up feeling that way. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have some sort of like minor sentiment about it, but it's ample opportunity. He hasn't said anything. Gary says, thank you, NWG, for coming on tonight. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Dom says, Instagram, like Pinterest, is already biased against and have an anti-white agenda. They shadow ban hashtags like white pride and white power while they let others use those words. Well, yeah. And I mean, and that's what I'm talking about. The anti-whites can just shift. You see what I'm trying to say here? Twitter was powerful, punched above its weight, because there was a spot beam on it rather than it having its own spot beam. So the anti-whites could merely shift the spot beam to Instagram and then say, this is trending there, and so therefore it's important. And also as a side note, both of those phrases right there in your sentence, both of those are part of the villain role, just irrespective of what you think of them or I think of them or what have you. Those concepts right there are part of the villain and the anti-white narrative. And if you go to the average brother or sister, white person out on the street, and you ask them, what do these things mean? They will tell you something that you surely do not believe. Something awful. Because these concepts are part of the anti-white narrative. It's the villain role in their narrative. It doesn't mean that these concepts to you or anybody else, or that these concepts in and of themselves are inherently those things. It doesn't mean that at all. But it does mean that they represent something very ugly to the average white person. And we need the average white people. We need them because we are normal, ordinary. We are the best of the white race. We are the most moral. We are the most conscientious. I mean, who's a better person? Who's a better white person? The white person who's just serving their own self-interest and getting ahead at everybody's expense? Or the white person who spends half their life working for the good of the whole of our people? Obviously, it's an easy answer. So we need ordinary, wonderful white people who they're ordinary in just the sort of the common sense, but they're extraordinary. They have extraordinary potential. We need them to come over, and we cannot win them to white well-being and putting an end to anti-whitism if we have to debate with all of them what these concepts really mean. So this is all I'm saying. It would be unending, and we would never get anywhere. And that's exactly what the anti-whites want you to do. Just my thought. You can disagree, but remember, people have been trying to use those phrases and failing because of what they mean in the anti-white narrative. Anglo-Saxon, great to see you. Based boomer, try some chicken heart, kidney, and Old Bay liver. All right, I'll do that. Oh yeah, I've got right now, I'm just looking at the clock, I have a steak in the crock pot. So I'm going to be chowing down as soon as we wrap up here. Ribeye is waiting for me. All of that red meat and fat that's on it. I can hear the anti-whites freaking out right now. Victorian time traveler. Part of the reason so many people want a billionaire to come save them is because they watched Batman as a kid. Yes, absolutely. 100%. You are 100% accurate. Because in their minds, that is real. Subconsciously, live 90+% of their lives subconsciously. That really happened. The billionaire came and saved the day. And so now they're waiting for that to happen in the real world. Austin, great to see you, brother. Austin 316. Tim is here. Steve is here. Let's Go Brandon is here. Will the Twitter taking over, or will Musk taking over Twitter cause these other platforms to reel back their shadow banning? It's another question I had. And I think the answer is no. They won't reel it in. I don't see a context for that yet. Not impossible, but Spider is here. Says hello. Please tag me if you want me to see for sure. We have the great Rory Herbert financially gifting $5 over on Entropy. Thank you so much for that, dear brother. And he writes here, I think I might have mentioned this in an earlier stream, but perhaps my wife's $2,000 investment in Twitter a few weeks ago might have been a good investment after all. I know you're not a financial advisor, but I would appreciate your opinion. Well, how many weeks ago was it? I remember you asking, you said that she had done this, asked if it would be a good investment. And it looks like, certainly now at this price, it's going to be a handsome return on that $2,000. So short-term investment that ended up potentially here turning a nice profit. Well done to Mrs. Rory Herbert, a wonderful lady. Let me check Cash App just to make sure we didn't have anybody show up over there. We have John saying Trump said he won't go back on Twitter. Yeah, that's right. Master says no white guilt will reign supreme. I hope. Wouldn't that be great if we could get that trending on Twitter? He did make Musk did make the comment about something about a social media should upset the 10% extremes on both sides. What exactly does that mean? Was that just talk, or does he have an idea for how it will upset? And what does he define that statement? You know, what does he define as the extremes? That statement said to me also that he is potentially in the fallacy that if he says that he believes I'm in the middle and so I have this inviolability as a consequence, that he's really not prepared for what they're going to bring to him. These are not people that play fair. Patrick of Southtown, heck yes, hails Jason. I'm hoping that Elon wipes the slate clean. I'm hopeful, but I also know not to be disappointed if things don't get better. We'll win either way. Very well written. Thank you for that. We will indeed. Machiavelli Sucks is here. Dom says, I bought some shares of Truth Social when it was 93 and 73, and now I'm holding this bag. Oh boy. Yeah. I don't see it. I'm not going to advise you. That's illegal. I don't see it rebounding, my friend. Not at this moment. I wouldn't drop it just yet, but see what begins to shake out with Twitter. But I don't see how Truth Social could survive in the light of a Musk Twitter. All right. Nobody is on Cash App. John Wilkes Based is here. Be Volkish, great to see you. Crystal something or other, great to see you. Freddie, hello and welcome. Spike says, I know Elon Musk is in it for power and money, but hopefully it'll benefit us and the long term. Actually, Spike, I mean, so I agree, but I really think it really comes down to just his ability to speak without being censored. And in this case, the censoring is done by the anti-whites. So he wants to continue to speak to that near 100 million. And now conceivably, even more. Although he does have to boost the active participation user number, because it is very low. Question Everything is here. Great to see you. Bass Guitarist is here. Paul Revere has joined us. Now that is fantastic. Artificer is here. Wonderful to see you, brother. Andy is here. Hello to you. Promethean Promulgation and James and Ned and the Great Sloths. 0022. Franklin points out that TikTok doesn't like NWG videos. No, it doesn't seem to like NWG videos at all. Red Radar says, what's a steak doing in a crock pot? Something is wrong. It's she's cooking it. That's the crock pot is my cooker while I do other things. Tricky says, sure is funny seeing all the anti-whites kvetching. Yeah, I mean, enjoy that for what it is. .0022 says, when the flow of income is coming from ads and or investors, the option of average consumer no longer affects profits. And then it was gone. But there's truth there. Let me quickly take a look at this. We're over at Yahoo Finance. Twitter says it's being acquired by Elon Musk for $44 billion. Twitter announced that it has entered into a deal with the Tesla CEO, Elon Musk. Twitter shareholders will receive $54.20 per share, and when the deal is finalized, the social network will become a privately held company. Twitter trading was halted Monday afternoon ahead of the news. Shares were up 6% just after 3:30 Eastern Time. Quote, free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated, Musk said in a statement following the announcement. I think that's mostly just pretense. I also want to make Twitter better than ever by enhancing the product with new features, making the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeating the spam bots, and authenticating all humans. So there you have the probably anonymity is gone. Twitter has tremendous potential. I look forward to working with the company and the community of users to unlock it. Are you ready to see the little Twitter badge inside of your Tesla? The announcement follows a tumultuous few weeks between Musk and Twitter's board, during which Musk became the company's largest shareholder, rebuffed the board's efforts to recruit him as a member, and launched a hostile takeover bid of the social media company. Musk now adds Twitter to his impressive portfolio of firms, including Tesla, SpaceX, The Boring Company, and Neuralink. Musk is a prolific Twitter user, regularly firing off news related to his companies, as well as his own stream of conscious tweets. He also, however, uses the platform as a means to tangle with politicians and critics. See, very important. That is what's most important to this guy, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's wrong. If we can benefit from it, so be it. His Twitter use has also gotten him into legal trouble in the past, most famously when he tweeted his intentions to take Tesla private at $420 a share, which earned him a $20 million fine from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Musk's animosity toward the SEC, specifically in its San Francisco office, was on full display Monday when he claimed on Twitter those in the agency are, quote, puppets of Wall Street short seller sharks, close quote. Musk, a friend, could you imagine having so much wealth and power that those Wall Street short sellers are like annoying guppies to you? Musk, a friend of Twitter co-founder and former CEO Jack Dorsey, often attacks Twitter and its content moderation policies. How exactly Musk will change the social platform, though, remains to be seen. I'm going to jump over here to, what is this? Reuters. Musk seals $44 billion deal for Twitter, pledges to defeat spam bots. New York, April 25. Elon Musk clinched a deal to buy Twitter for $44 billion cash on Monday in a transaction that will shift control of the social media platform populated by millions of users and global leaders to the world's richest person. Now you're going to also hear this nonsense from anti-whites, and they're going to start crying about, should we really allow rich people to control things like this? And look at all the money he spent on Twitter. He could have ended poverty and hunger 10 times over on planet Earth. Ignore all of that. Don't debate any of that with them. They don't mean any of it. Those are just lies to get to anti-white conclusions. This guy's getting in the way of victimizing Western kind of Western civilization. What can I say that will undermine him? That is all that's going through their heads. It doesn't make any sense to start rattling off all the billionaires that own everything, that make it anti-white. That's not going to move them. You're just going to be flustered. It won't matter that you can point out all of the different billionaires who do all the different companies that make billions and billions and billions of dollars, and how a fifth of that income could cure hunger and poverty hundreds of times over on planet Earth. It's not going to faze them. No, because those were pretexts. They're not going to say, oh, you're actually right. You're right. I just take that back. No, it's just a pretext to get to hurting you and your family in this country, all Western countries. So don't bother listening to them. You just point out how anti-white they are. Instead, you say, well, you have no problem when it's a billionaire who owns it for anti-white objectives. Just proves that you're anti-white. Why are you so anti-white? It is a seminal moment for the 16-year-old company that emerged as one of the world's most influential public squares and now faces a string of challenges. So remember what I said. How is Twitter influential? How is it a influential public square? And I believe that is, I think I made the argument successfully, that it is because spotlights are turned on the platform rather than it is a lighthouse that guides us through the rocky shoals of modernity. No, it's because spotlights are put on it. And I think the same thing can be done for Instagram or any of the others. Musk has criticized Twitter's moderation, calling himself a free speech absolutist. I think that's a pretense. He wants a place where he can do battle with politicians, do battle with media personalities and companies, and to be able to speak right to people. That is how Trump got around the power of interpretation. And that's really what so-called democracy is all about. What's the news that people receive about you? Billionaires, somebody with a lot of power knows that. Trump didn't have what it took to secure that for himself, much less all of us. Musk has what it takes to secure it for himself. He said that Twitter's algorithm for prioritizing tweets should be public and criticized giving too much power on the service to corporations and advertisers. We'll see, again, how that plays out in the real world. Words are very easy. How many times do you have to be taken for a fool by a politician? Words are easy. Actions and results are something else. Political conservatives hope that a Musk regime would mean, that's an interesting choice of words there, would mean less moderation. That's interesting as well. It's sort of like if you have your right to self-defense, it means that there are no laws to protect us from criminals who would rob and rape and murder with firearms or with a sword or with whatever. So this is the very sophisticated psychological control of the masses throughout Western civilization. This is how it's done. So there'll be no moderation and reinstatement of banned individuals, including former President Donald Trump. That, of course, this author could have very easily looked up that Trump wants nothing to do with getting back there. He or she is using the name Donald Trump to evoke the wild, frothing, dystopic, psychotic mania of anti-whites, who may call themselves feminists, who may call themselves leftists, who may call themselves woke, who may call themselves all these different things that don't care where they call themselves. They get the title of my choosing in our story. He also says here, Musk describes himself as, Musk himself also has described user-friendly tweaks in the service, such as an edit button and defeating spam bots, the spam bot scourge. Vicious, merciless. They spam all who confront them. That send overwhelming amounts of unwanted tweets. Discussions over the deal, which last week appeared uncertain, accelerated over the weekend after Musk wooed Twitter shareholders with financing details of his offer. Oh, that's too easy. Under pressure, Twitter started negotiating. So they were just under pressure. He was throttling them at the moment. Started negotiating with Musk to buy instead of these people wanting to escape prison for breaching their fiduciary responsibilities. It's that under pressure from Musk, they decided to capitulate and allow him to purchase the company at $54.20 a share. Quote, free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated, Musk said in a statement. Well, now what's also important about understanding Musk's statements at this point is that they're going to be not, days ago, the statement about it, free speech and democracy and these sorts of things, those statements were uttered to rally support for what is maybe 98% just a selfish endeavor to speak to the masses, and to speak out against politicians, to speak out against the FCC, to speak out against DOJ, to speak out against whatever, whoever. But now he's a salesman. Now the deal is done. They just got to do the paperwork. The ink is drying. So now the things he says are going to be the speech of a salesman. He's going to be trying to win you over. Now the claim that Twitter is the public square is not a fact that he's observing like a mountain on the horizon. Now it's a belief that he needs you to hold. Twitter is not the public square. The social internet environment is the public square. Twitter shares rose 5.7% on Monday to close at $51.70. The deal represents a near 40% premium to the closing price the day before Musk disclosed he had bought a more than 9% stake. That's Reuters. Even so, the offer is below the $70 range where Twitter was trading last year. Well, that's meaningless. Collect. I mean, you have a stock or whatever. At some point, it might have been a lot more. Maybe your cryptocurrency was a lot more. 2 years ago, it was so much more. But okay, well, collect on that sum. Well, you can't. Well, then shut up. I think the company were given enough time to transform. If given, we would have made substantially more than what Musk is currently offering. Oh my God, said Jonathan Boyer, managing director at Boyer Value Group, which holds a stake in Twitter. What a lying POS that guy is. It was perfect for anti-whites. It wasn't going anywhere. He added, this transaction reinforces our belief that if the public markets do not properly value a company, an acquirer eventually will. well, that's his company, is Jonathan's company here. Of course, that's now the argument he's going to make. Hire us to give a proper value so that a hostile takeover doesn't take place. Oh, a lot of people were asking too, and I want to say this before we go. I'll check, probably have read enough of this at this point. I will check. Oh, here we have Trump releases statement on possible return to Twitter after Elon Musk buys company. And it says he's not going back. And then you have a Musk statement. Musk released a statement on Monday afternoon after Twitter's board of directors. Oh, let me just say this before I forget. A lot of people are asking, let's just do that with YouTube. Let's just do that, Google. Let's just do that with, no. Those companies, although public, have written into their bylaws that only certain shares are voting shares. You could, technically speaking, with this sort of unscrupulous way of having a public company, you could say that 5 shares are the voting shares, and then you could own every other share, and you have no choice, no voice in saying what the company does and where it goes. And that's how Google is structured. And that's how many of these others, maybe all of them, are structured. Twitter was the only one that might be the only one that is structured this way. Musk has hinted at, and in some cases plainly stated, changes that will be coming to Twitter if he takes over the company, including loosening up the platform's content moderators, making the platform algorithms open source, eliminating bots, and authenticating real humans on the platform. He had this little tweet. He says he's got little rockets and hearts and stars. Free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. I also want to make Twitter better than ever by enhancing the product with new features, making the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeating the spam bots, and authenticating all humans. Twitter has tremendous potential. I look forward to working with the company and the community of users to unlock it. So there you have it. I should have read that before I speculated. It definitely seems like anonymity is going to go the way of the dodo bird and on Twitter. And he also did see much more value. So they're going to be making big changes potentially. And I wouldn't be surprised to see something akin to a TikTok type of feature show up in Twitter some point in the near future. Rory back again with $3 more. God bless you, brother. He says over here on Entropy, he says, Dear Jason, apart from initially ordering a McLaren 720S and a Sunseeker super yacht from England. Wow. Invite me over. What would you first do with 44 billion? Oh, you're asking me. Aside from those things, yes. A wonderful engagement. Oh, isn't that a wonderful engagement ring for a one little ladybug who is in the chat? That's sweet. What would I do? Well, I would take over the world. And on that note, I will say to you all, it has been grand, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon, definitely by Wednesday. And until then, roll out. I want you to reach out in love. I want you to let those brothers and sisters around the base, let them know that even though the anti-whites wield so much power, that we are winning every contest with them, and that it's only a matter of time. Tell them that they can be more than they are. Tell them that they can stand up for Western kind, Western civilization, and everyone who lives in Western civilization of all immutable characteristics. Tell them that there's a way that they can stand up for it in love with the moral high ground. Be gentle with them at first. Coming out of a story that you thought was the real world is one of the hardest things that folks can do. If you go there with a true spirit and a true heart, with humility, you're going to win more souls than you'll ever turn away. And in the end, all of that will redound to the glory of our people and the reclamation of our destiny.